you can clean up any damage I may have just created, but hopefully that'll make it clear.
All right, so some of this will be a refresher for people who were at the last session we did on intervenor funding. Just to give some background, the idea behind intervenor funding is to assist local parties, municipalities, interested parties in reviewing the pre-application and actually constructively participating in the process here. As you can see, the definition of intervenor is very, very broad. It's basically anyone other than the applicant or staff at the Department of Public Service or a public agency. And as Richard mentioned, with the submission of the PSS, a check for $99,750 accompanied that submission to fund the intervenor funding account for the pre-application process. So eligibility. 50% of the intervenor funding is going to be set aside for municipal parties. So Town of Cape Vincent, Town of Lyme, Village of Chameau. Basically, any municipality fulfills the definition of municipality, but it's likely that it'll be a local interested municipality that would be seeking those funds. What can the funds be used for? They can be used to defray pre-application expenses. They can be used for legal fees. They can be used for consultants and administrative costs, but they cannot be used for judicial review or litigation costs. So what's going to happen now? Today, a presiding examiner was actually appointed by the Department of Public Service for this case. And shortly, the presiding examiner will issue a notice that the intervenor funding is available. That notice will have a schedule, including information on how municipalities and interested parties can apply for those funds. As Richard mentioned, we have a form of the application that DPS has already promulgated for intervenor funding, and that form is also available on the DPS website, which will give you information on how to access that as well. The notice will likely require a 30-day response time once it's issued. So you'll have 30 days to get your applications in. Probably jumping on there. The requests, the applications are going to go to the presiding examiner. They'll also go to other parties to the proceeding, and they need to be filed with the secretary to the citing board. After the applications are in for intervenor funding, at least 45 days and no more than 60 days after the PSS is filed, the presiding examiner is going to convene a pre-application conference to consider funding requests. At that conference or meeting, any applicant for intervenor funding should be prepared to discuss your application and justify why intervenor funding should be awarded to you. Just some detail on what needs to be in the application. Taking them just in order, the number of persons represented and nature of interest represented should be articulated. If there are other resources and funds available to the intervenor applicant, and any efforts made to obtain those funds. The amount of funding sought, if you're seeking funding for experts, then the name and qualification of those experts. details regarding services to be provided, hourly fee or wage rate expenses, and how the services are going to add to the record is going to be important. And finally, a copy of any contract with a consultant or a lawyer if applicable. The key here is detail. The more detail you can provide, the better you're going to be in terms of having a successful application. If a study is going to be performed, then this will likely be more relevant to the application phase of this project. But if a study was to be performed during the PSS phase, you'd want to include all the following information in your application for intervenor funding. I think. And this is just some detail on what should be guiding the presiding examiner on how they award the funds. So the funding should be awarded on an equitable basis to participants during the pre-application phase. And it should be used to make an effective contribution to the review of the preliminary scoping statement, and thereby provide an early and effective public involvement. Interveners are encouraged to consider the consolidation of requests with similar funding proposals of other interveners. And if possible, any application for intervenor funding should identify other interested parties looking to hire the same or similar consultant.
Is that similar to a grant or something?
Yes. Yep. Do you want to scroll through these, or do you want to take over for now?
I can take these.
All right.